What? Only some.
All you got is conjecture. You're about an inch away from getting bounced out of the IAB.
It's our job to protect the community, uphold the law.
Sometimes you gotta do a smaller wrong for a bigger right.
Okay, good.
Okay. All right, perfect. Okay. So, Michael, I'm really excited to talk to you about Confidential Informant. I saw the movie actually about a week ago, and I actually liked it. It was very thrilling. Lots of nice little twists to the story.
Are you still Confidential Informant?
Yep, I did get to see it.
How did Lionsgate give you a copy, or how'd you get to see it?
Yeah, I got to work with one of the PR companies behind it, and they sent me a screener.
Great. I'd like it if they'd send me a screener. Oh, so it's pretty good, right?
Yeah, and overall, it was a really good film. I really enjoyed it. I like these kind of movies where you have the little twists and turns, and it keeps you engaged. It keeps you on the edge of your seat, like what's going to happen next. And with the performances, it was all around a good movie.
Yeah, I was trying to avoid making the run-of-the-mill action movie,
Mm-hmm.
and because Mel's been doing a lot of that stuff lately, and I didn't want to do that. And I'm a very close friend of Dominic Purcell's, and he definitely didn't want to do another one of those kind of formulaic genre actioners. And I worked on the script with Mike Kachek, the cop who conceived it for about I don't know 8 years or so, a really long time. And Kachek was an undercover narcotics cop in New York City, in Brooklyn, in the 1990s. So that's why it's based on real events, the things that he observed.
Oh wow!
So yeah, that's why it really has a ring of authenticity to it, and I wanted it to sort of transcend the regular action movie. In fact, I was kind of surprised how together, because I thought it was much more of a drama than an action movie, even though it has action. I try to integrate it. I kind of thought of movies like Sidney Pollack, or kind of films, like The French Connection, William Friedkin, those kind of films, that are action movies, but they're really cop movies that Prince of the Cities, Sidney Lumet, movies that that really are about New York,
Yeah, it felt like it had for me, it had a Scorsese tone to it a little bit, where
that's high praise.
There's some beats of action, but it focused more on the actual story, because nowadays you have action films which either more story, less action. Then you have the ones that there's a little plot to it, but it focuses on more on the action sequences. Here, it felt like it was a well-balanced movie in a way. It felt really well-balanced.
Yeah, I was really aiming for that. I mean, certainly my heart is more in the Scorsese and the Sidney Lumet universe than it would be in the kind of programmer action of things.
Yeah, and like you mentioned Dominic Purcell. I mean, I noticed this year he's been doing projects outside his usual repertoire, if you will. I mean, he did a movie called Assassin, which was Bruce Willis's final film that got released, and here he plays a totally different character that I'm not used to. He played this suave art dealer type, and I'm thinking he's supposed to be a bad guy, but he wasn't really a bad guy. I was like, this is not something I expect from Dominic Purcell. And here he plays the tough cop, but at the same time he's very conflicted and flawed, which I really like. I feel like these type of characters they feel more human than what we were used to in the action genre.
Yeah, but definitely Dom didn't want to see himself end up in the kind of Steven Seagal route of his career. Dom went to theater school with Hugh Jackman in Australia, and so he's a real trained thespian, even though it's belied by his kind of physical appearance, because he got such a tough guy kind of look, and with the shaved head and the tats, and you know, God knows how many years he did on Prison Break with Wentworth Miller. So he's got that kind of persona that's kind of his bread and butter. But at his core, he's a sensitive thespian, and you know, I think he'd be very happy being up there with Hugh Jackman in a Simon Dance movie. You know, he wants to extend it in that respect. And at one point, I had a version of the script that was even more drama oriented and even less action oriented, and he was really pushing me in that direction. It was just like going to be an impossible movie to get financed in the current climate, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah,
it's you know, it's the demand is so much for those formulaic kind of Seagal oriented. Didn't you do a Seagal movie back in the day?
I think he did. Yeah, but I'm pretty sure he did at one point. I can't remember. Can't remember which one off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure he did.
Albert?
Yeah, I know.
You do direct a couple back in the day. You did, Albert.
No, I never directed a movie.
Why am I thinking of, I thought you directed some, but you know, those kind of, it started in the early 2000s, right? When so that they started putting Seagal in all these like
low budget,
movies, you know, with Avi Lerner and that, like, and that was like the first and only movie I did with Randall Emmett, you know, where they really just jacked up Seagal's price and just jacked down the budget, and you know, neutered the storyline. So having been a director who's had movies in the Sundance Film Festival and in the competition in the Cannes Film Festival, and you know, I've got my early movies are in the permanent collection of the Museum of Modern Art. You know, I wasn't terribly keen on dumbing down my pictures, you know, and so that's made it a more difficult route as an indie filmmaker for me. But this one, I really walked a fine line, giving Lionsgate and Grindstone what they wanted, but still trying to hold some integrity to you know, keep some integrity to the storyline and keep it like within the Scorsese and the Sidney Lumet wheelhouse. And I think that balance works, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally think it works. And not just Dominic Purcell, Nick Stahl is really like, I really liked his role in the film too, because as of late, I've seen him as like villain types. You know, he did a movie, he did The Murder of Nicole Brown Simpson, where it's like, what if he was actually the killer and not O.J. Simpson? You know, what if he was this Casanova guy? You know, he's always played these like kind of bad guys as of late, but here he is. I finally got to see him in a good guy role again, and he did a great job on this.
He's such a empathetic actor. I mean, you look into his eyes when you're filming him, and you just see 100 miles of pain and gravitas. I mean, Nick Stahl is easily one of the great unappreciated actors roaming around. I mean, look, partially, you know, his demons are what he has to blame for not being, you know, considered one of the greats. I mean, his early career was outstanding, and his acting in Larry Clark's movie Bully was
that's where I remember. It was a great movie. And then let's not forget
performance. I mean, everybody was going Nick Stahl. This is going to be an Academy Award-winning actor, and I think he's finally resurfaced in my film, showing the absolute gravitas and brilliance of his talent. I mean, that role is not every time the camera turned on, Nick Stahl lit it up with the depth and brilliance, like wonderment. I mean, I really felt wonderment when I watched Nick act. You know, like wow, this is a guy who's come back from the precipice. I mean, Nick Stahl was fucking shooting heroin in downtown LA after he'd been, doing huge movies. I think one of his earliest movies was with Mel Gibson.
Exactly. I was about to bring that up. The Man Without a Face. That was like his. Actually, I think that might have been his first movie. His first like major role was The Man Without a Face. I was about to bring that up because he reunites with Mel on this one, which I found it's outstanding.
Yeah, we have both. Here's the interesting thing about this movie, and is it certainly has a hard, sharp look at sobriety and alcoholism and drug taking in a very lucid way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And here I was shooting a movie with my three lead actors, Mel Gibson, Nick Stahl, and Dominic Purcell. The three leading males are all in 12-step programs and have all been through the mill with their addictions, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, this is a serious fucking movie, It's not, I'm just hoping that Lionsgate gets it reviewed by some serious. I think it's a serious film. I certainly intend.
I do. Yeah. I mean, this was like.
I mean, the DGA put it in their official. The DGA is very, very exclusive about who they screen in their internal DGA screenings for members only. Yeah. Right? They select very few films, and it's screening in New York and LA at the DGA, which puts it firmly up for DGA awards. Not that it's going to win any, but the fact that it's under consideration is a beautiful thing for me, because it means I elevated the movie out of its run-of-the-mill genre stereotype and put it right into the serious category of, this is, I spent a long time hanging out with the New York cops with Mike Kachek, and I got to see how much substance abuse and how much, there's a lot of shit swept under the carpet, certainly because cops have a certain persona that they have to uphold. But boy, they have a really traumatic lifestyle, and certainly they suffer from post-traumatic syndrome as much as any soldier. They're, as Mike Kachek said to me, being an undercover narcotics cop in the 90s in New York City and its surroundings was like going to war in Iraq. You were in the middle of the crack epidemic. You didn't know if you were going to get blasted by a shotgun or a 9mm or whatever going into any apartment. And I mean, to keep your cool and actually befriend your informants on the level that you had to in order to make those undercover busts was certainly, an anxiety-prone occupation for sure, right? Mm-hmm. So we're dealing with an environment where there's a high level of stress in a city where there's a high level of stress. And I wanted to amplify that by bringing in musicians from that period who were friends of mine, like DJ Muggs from Cypress Hill, right? I mean, this wasn't a huge budget movie. So to get a Cypress Hill soundtrack, it was a big fucking deal to pull up. I mean, these are close friends of mine, as is Roy Hayes and Boy George and Culture Club.
Yep. And
I wanted that soundtrack to reflect the late 80s, early 90s when this movie took place, so the music is very authentic. Right?
Oh, yeah, it felt perfect. I mean, it just felt right. I don't think you could have found a better score with this movie, because it felt like I was there in 1990s New York, which I was. I was in 1990s, that New York area at the time. So that's
right. I was right there. I mean, believe me, those crack houses are filmed from experience. I saw those. There's nothing in that movie that I didn't see. I'll tell you that much. I mean, it was really. I mean, I put my heart and soul into this thing, even though I was working in a kind of genre capacity, in a genre framework. I figured if the right reviewers get to see this movie, it's going to break out, of its.
Yeah.
So you're agreeing with me, huh?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I feel, like I said, it was a great balance between the drama and the action. Of course, you have the production company wanting, you want all action, but at the same time, you also want to think, keep some integrity in the film with the drama part. And like I said, it was a well-balanced movie.
Well, luckily for me, I was producer, writer, and director on this. I developed the project, I owned the project, and I did all the rewriting on the project to make sure that it was coherent in that respect.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had quite a lot of control, in terms of what I was making, even though it was being done for Lionsgate Grindstone, in that genre. I don't think this is anything like what Grindstone's done in the past.
Well, yeah. I mean, I've seen some of their stuff, and they I think as of late they have been doing more balancing the drama and the action. I think they really want a good story and all that nowadays with some of their films.
They were very supportive, and they were very congratulatory to me. They would really like the movie a lot, So I just, I'm glad they're getting screeners out to critics and getting people viewing it. I was hoping they wouldn't do what they normally do, which is hide the movie until it gets released, right?
Yeah.
But hopefully they're getting favorable reviews. I'm so glad you've seen it, and that's really cool.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I can't
you've got to see it on the big screen. It's opening in theaters, right?
Yeah. What date? For those who want to know, what date is that? What's the release date for the film?
I think it opens on the 27th of June in select theaters. Definitely in New York and LA. I don't know whether where else, but I don't know whether it's opening in hipster towns like Vancouver and Boston, where it would certainly be appreciated. San Francisco, the kind of hipster places. Toronto.
Yeah, chances are, I'm near Orlando, so I have a feeling it might be somewhere around the Orlando area. They might open it there. So I've seen a lot of indie films have been released around this area as well.
Well, let's keep an eye on it. Hopefully it's going to go places, because I think anybody who gets into a movie house and sees this thing, when you really hear it packing the 5.1 mix, and when that first Cypress Hill song kicks in, over that title sequence with the crack dealers sorting out coke and the hot girls are smoking freebase in the bathtub and the whole thing.
Yep.
Well, the director was really drawing on some experience there.
That's awesome.
So when this movie goes to that 12-step program place, it really channels my experiences, Dom's experiences, Mel Gibson's experiences, and Nick Stahl's experiences. It was a very personal movie for all of us to make,
Yeah, I totally get that. And that's why the performances are so good. It felt natural. And that's what it is, because they've been through this. They've been through the ringer. And now this is like one of the ultimate signs of redemption for all of them. And that's what makes it work.
Well, you got to get the word out to all the critics. Let's start getting some good reviews on this thing so people can see it, because it's a movie that deserves to be seen. It's got a message that deserves to be out there. And, especially in these depressing and dark times, right? Yep. When, people are burying their heads under the water 2 miles down in submarines, when they could be using those billions of dollars to help, people who are homeless and war-stricken all over the world. I think,
exactly.
I've tried to get a really an important message out there on this film. It's like, it's a political film. It really is, and it's not a political film. It's about division. It's not about I'm a Republican or a Democrat or a liberal or a conservative. It's about a rational approach to living life in a sensible and clear way. And really evaluating what is honest and what is dishonest. There's a great quote from Bob Dylan where he says, to live outside the law, you must be honest.
Yep.
And sometimes, I think the Nick Stahl character says that sometimes you do wrong to make something go right, and that's really a line from Mike Kachek, the cop, wrote that himself. You got to sometimes break the law to uphold the law, right? And that's what this movie is about, is that we can't make these blanket moralistic decisions about things. And as we're doing in our society with cancel culture and, anti-abortion and, there's just, this stacked Supreme Court, and there's just so many disciples of absolutism, where where they're just trying to make legal or moralistic decisions for the masses by the few in the name of the masses, right? It's bizarre, you know? And this movie turns around and says, no. The law is made by human beings, not by supernatural creatures, right? And sometimes the law is wrong and morality is right. And you got to break the law to do the moral thing.
Exactly.
Even if you're a cop. And that's a heavy story to tell successfully and make authentic and convincing.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why this is such a great movie. And I'm hoping when it comes out, people will check it out because they need to see it, not just for the performances, but you said it yourself, the story itself just makes the movie as well. And you know, that's why, you know, I think people definitely need to check it out.
Yeah, no, it's an important message that I was hoping to convey. You're actually the first critic that I've spoken to who's seen the movie, so I'm kind of stoked that it worked. You know?
Oh wow, yeah. Oh, well, I'm honored to hear that.
Dude, I just finished. I mean, I came out the picture mixing like a week ago, dude. I mean, we were still putting in titles. We barely made the deadline. They put such a hard and fast release date on us. It was insane finishing this thing. It's just been full tilt. So I have no idea. Like I said, I haven't seen a screener, right? I mean,
Right.
all I've done is finish the movie in the studio, right, on the big screen.
Yeah.
And I had no idea. You know, in the end, I mean, you hope that you're true all the way down the line, and you kind of want to be that as an auteur and hoe that path and you know, make a righteous product. But ultimately, it's the audience is a tabula rasa. It's a blank slate. They're the ones who decide. And you're the first one that I've spoken to who's seen the movie.
That's
So I'm
awesome. Yes,
yeah.
and like I said, I absolutely love the movie. I mean, it could be one of the best movies out there this year. I mean, in terms of indie films, with like I said, the balance of the story, the action, and the performances, it just all gels together.
Wow, one of the best indie movies out there this year. Wow, that's cool. Let's put that on the poster on the press. That's pretty cool. That's high praise. I mean, I was you know, hoping against hope, but hey, well, that's really good. Shoot.
So
how'd you like the look? How'd you like the look of it? I mean, I really went deep into
yeah,
my
it
kind
felt,
of
yeah, it
Terry
felt
Gilliam.
really,
You know, I was really channeling Terry Gilliam's version of art direction in Brazil. You know, with like, because once you're doing a period movie, you've got a lot of freedom because a period isn't that period. It's all the periods that accumulate into that period, which was 1995, and you want to give it authenticity. So you've got cars from the 70s was still driving around, and you know, there's no real internet. The computers are old, you know, pre MacBook Pros, and cell phones are like kind of Motorola bricks, and if anybody has them, and you see the guy using the payphone and all that stuff. So I was channeling my New York, which was like, you know, the 80s and 90s, you know.
Yeah, I mean, growing up there, I've seen it all. I've seen all that, like up close and personal. So it felt like authentic to me as well because I've been through that era, you know. I lived in New York during the 80s and 90s, so I know exactly how you feel.
Yeah, I don't know how many period films there have been of that era, but it's kind of, I mean, if young kids get to see this, it's going to be pretty cool for them to really channel that. You know, the way we would have channeled like American Graffiti or Two Lane Backtop or Five Easy Pieces when we were young. You know, this is that, and it's a different era. It wasn't the 80s and 90s was not a hippie era. You know, it was
Right.
crack, violence, and gangster rap, and it was a whole different. You know, cops out on the street with guns. It was that era. You know.
Mm-hmm.
And so, well, I'm really stoked that you dig the picture, man. I'm really happy. Thank you.
So with that said, what's next for you after this movie that you can? Is there any new projects on the horizon that you can talk
Well,
about?
I was working on a script with my friend Peter Eilif, who wrote the original Point Break, and he wrote Patriot Games and Friday Night Lights. Great screenwriter, really one of the best screenwriters. And we have a biker script that, you know, like a couple of old renegade bikers come out of prison from a long stint to find that, you know, their biker chapter is being marginalized by a cartel, guys. It's kind of like a, you know, Harley Davidson versus Ducatis. It's a fucking great script. We were all ready to rock and roll, and now the strike has happened, you know. Now I'm caught up in 1930s labor politics all of a sudden, you know.
Yep.
I mean, I'm a kind of postmodernist thinker, so I see the kind of dialectics of labor politics and conservative versus liberal and Republican versus Democrat and all that kind of dichotomized politics as being very inauthentic to our postmodernist period, where things are moving at a much more hallucinatory pace. You know, if you're having an argument about AI, artificial intelligence, or chat GBT, you're not like with it, baby. You know, because it would be like me as a director saying, hey, I want to shoot 35 millimeter film only. I can't go digital with, I can't use a Red or an Arri Alexia. I mean, this movie, I love Reds, right? This whole movie shot on a Red, right? I've been using Reds since it came out. And I know how to, and I shot many movies on 35 millimeter. I mean, I was one of the first rock video guys in the world. I was propaganda films, and I was there with Finch, you know, and I was a DP director. So I know how to take a 35 millimeter camera to pieces. You know what I mean? I shoot film all the time. And I know how to take, this movie looks like it was shot on film, you know, because my DP, Chris Squires, was Vilmos Zsigmond's camera operator. You know, Chris is not only a great operator, but he was also one of the best Steadicam operators. He shot the famous feather sequence at Forrest Gump. You know, so we're two old guys who know how to shoot film. So we also know how to shoot digital and make it look exactly like film. I defy you to tell the difference. You know, we use grain passes and we underexpose the film. For me, a Red is kind of akin to using Fuji 35 millimeter film. It's got that kind of weird degraded look that I like. Mm-hmm. So I think the argument about whether artificial intelligence or chat GBT is going to be useful or not to writers is a mute argument. It's totally moot. You're going to have to use it. It's there. It's a tool. These things are tools. They're not there to, you know, animating actors' faces through CGI is not going to replace actors.
Right.
Chat GBT is not going to replace writers, but everybody has to adapt to the future.
Yep. Exactly. Well, I hope everyone gets to check out Confidential Informant. It'll be out, you said, New York and Los Angeles on June 27th.
That's what they tell me.
So I hope everyone gets to see this film, especially because it feels authentic. It's a great balance of drama and action. And of course, you have excellent performances from the whole cast, especially Nick, Dominic, and Mel, because this is something they've been through at one point in their lives, and this is like an ultimate redemption. And thank you once again, Michael, for taking the time to talk about the movie.
And let's not forget Kate Bosworth. Hey,
yes.
Albert, let's not forget Kate Bosworth.
Oh yeah,
who was really brilliant, and who, in my mind, I think during her life as a great actress, has had to see a lot of men go down that road, and she certainly knew how to accommodate emotionally that role.
Yeah, she made the most of her role. I mean, the most of her screen time. She was there as the support system, basically, and she did a fantastic job on that.
I mean, you look in her eyes, and it's just the pure depth and emotion of a woman who is totally capable of being independent and standing by her man and her child simultaneously. She is a truly feminine character and a wonderful actress, like a really great actress. I was blown away because I'm a surfer, you know, so I've surfed my whole life. I grew up in South Africa surfing. And of course, I love Blue Crush just because of that. And here we see Kate Bosworth just taking it to a whole nother level as a dramatic actress. So
Yeah, exactly.
the whole cast is great. I got to, John Lindstrom, John Cassini, Diana Camacho playing the Puerto Rican cop, is a real Puerto Rican. I try to really keep the Latino aspect of the film very authentic. And there's a lot of Spanish. There's a lot of Latino, Puerto Rican, New York, Puerto Rican Spanish in the movie.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you, Albert, so much.
Well, thank you again, Michael, and you take care.
All right, man.
All right.
Ciao.
See ya.
Go see the movie, everyone.
Yep. Go check it out. June
See it in the
27th.
theater where it's supposed to be seen.
Exactly. Check it. So everyone check out Confidential Informant.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right. So let's end that one. I have another one now. Yeah. I have a second one now. That's so weird.